Michael Shore here with Reporters Roundtable. This is the inaugural Reporters Roundtable from the Democratic National Convention. The late Ben Mankiewicz not with us this week. I'm doing this show. He wanted, it was ugly. He wanted conventional wisdom. I gave it to him, and then they canceled that show. So that's what happened to Ben. Philadelphia, a lot different than Cleveland was, both in the temperament of the convention goers and the stories that are coming out of this convention. Today I'm joined by political reporter Emily Kahn, Tommy Christopher of Mediaite, editor at Mediaite, but you read him in the Daily Banter as well, and Alexandra Steingrad from Women's Wear Daily, where she is the media editor there. I'm going to start with you, Emily. You know, the politics is why people come here, but the whole notion of being at an event like this is about the media as much as it is about what's going on, I don't know, about 34 yards from where we're sitting. When you come to a convention, what do you come here trying to do? Do you come here trying to have a good time, or are you looking for stories as well?
I mean, we're looking to speak to the people that are actually voting. You know, from my desk in New York, I can assume what's happening, but when you come here, you actually talk to the people. So my directive here is to tell people what folks are really saying. And so that's what I've been doing.
It's interesting because I was out on the trail for most of this election. I was with Al Jazeera America. I was their political correspondent, and then they folded. So now I'm sitting here with you guys, as Tommy knows. But we got so much with the voters, and then I come here and I feel like, you know, these delegates, Alex, are different than actual voters, aren't they?
Very different. I feel like the interesting thing is they have a fervor and a passion, and just walking around here kind of talking to the Bernie supporters, you definitely feel that I feel like part of the country is still just some people are still deciding on what they want to do, but as a media reporter, I kind of come in to get the color, but also talk to journalists to see the way that they're covering the whole circus as well. I mean, it's a circus.
There are so many, like the Showtime show says, they got it right? There's so many journalists here. Yeah. I mean, the place is lousy with them, literally. So is this as much a convention for the media as it is for the people who come here? I'm going to ask you, Alex, and we're going to get a lot with Tommy.
I mean, yes, in some ways it is, but also I don't know about you guys, but covering a lot of events like South by Southwest, like Cannes Lion, all these events are so media-centric. They do feel almost like circus, like a circus for us, but also at the same time, I think it is a chance for the delegates to kind of be here and mingle and support their candidate. But to me, it does feel very much like a big tent that we're all in.
And literally, we are. Tommy, you come here looking for stories, as you always do. I mean, and in a sense, sometimes you avoid this bullshit because there's no story happening here. What is the story here, though? Has anything come out of here that is compelling from a journalistic standpoint, from a political standpoint?
Well, the main reason I'm here is to see you guys, actually.
Right, okay. We know that.
I think if I was a reporter covering the convention, I covered my first convention in 2008 in Denver, and the first thing I learned is basically what you were saying. The place is lousy with reporters. There's a million of us. And so, like you were saying, pretty much anything that every other reporter is trying to get is something that we got to either be watching at home from our desks, or we're not going to get because there's 10 guys in front of us.
Yeah. So
what I would look for, if you could get some good tape of a protester, like you said, the voters, the delegates are good, but also, especially if you're a media reporter, I do a lot of covering. I cover the parties, and also I go to the parties.
Yeah.
I got to say that's really the main thing.
Well, because there's a ton of free stuff here too. That's
ton
one
of free
thing
stuff,
you should know is
bar.
that everybody is constantly putting stuff into their pockets at these conventions. Free stuff, open bar, like Tommy said. Not free food in the hall, but other than that.
That's kind of chintzy if you ask me. You
right.
got to give me free food to get me anywhere. But the other thing that's nice about it too is it's sort of like summer camp for journalists. I mean, especially if you're on the same beat. Like I cover politics and media, so I run into the same people, but I guess maybe I'm a little different because I work from home when I'm not out covering stuff. So it's the only time I get to get out, And I see the same people over and over again, so it's a little bit like a summer camp reunion for me.
Yeah, Emily, let's talk about some of the meat of what's happening here. Last night, we're at day 2 now. Last night, the big speech was the most anticipated speech, I should say, was the speech that Bernie Sanders was going to give last night. It was moved from the middle of the evening till the end of the evening. Everyone was sort of feeling the pulse of what those Bernie delegates were thinking in the hall last night. Were they going to be disruptive? Were they going to make a stand? Were they going to boo every time Hillary Clinton's name comes up? They switched it. They put him at the end of the night. Did Bernie Sanders do what he needed to do last night if you're a Hillary Clinton supporter?
You know, I actually think what he did this morning was what they wanted him to do.
Tell us about that.
So he went to a bunch of state delegation breakfasts. So during the day, all the state delegations meet at different rooms around the city and have speakers come. And he went to a few. He went to California, which is where the most vocal of the Bernie booers were. And he said, you know, don't boo. You have to look your children in the face if Donald Trump is president. And I think that's what Hillary supporters wanted him to say last night, which he didn't.
And do you think it was planned, or do you think it was, I didn't do enough last night, I got to get up early this morning and go to breakfast?
You know, it might have been that. He was behind the stage, right? So he didn't really watch what was happening outside. So maybe he went home, saw what really happened, and said, I needed to do more.
And Dan Merica, who has covered Hillary Clinton, start to not yet finished, but start till today, as an embedded producer reporter with CNN, tweeted just a little while ago that Bernie Sanders has gone to his home state of Vermont. That delegation said he wants Vermont to be last, and he wants Vermont to be unanimous and by acclamation put Hillary Clinton over. So the symbolism there is that Bernie Sanders going to his home state, that's the exclamation point he seemingly wants to put on this convention. That last-ditch effort, Tommy, do you think that is going to resonate finally with Bernie supporters?
I don't know. I mean, I think you saw the arc last night. And to your point, I actually think that Bernie did do what he had to do last night because, as somebody who I've not been a big fan of the way Bernie's handled the end of this campaign. I feel like he should have conceded a long time ago, endorsed Hillary. Although I will say I'm very surprised at how much he got in the platform. So I'm happy about that and surprised. But I think, he spent the first 5 minutes of the speech and never even said her name. And so I was thinking to myself, is he ever going to get around to saying her name? And then when he does say her name, he says, this election is not about Hillary Clinton. That was the first time he said her name. And then it seemed like he spoke for another 5 minutes before he got to her again.
Yeah.
And what he was doing, I feel like he was easing them into the bathwater, and his supporters, I mean. And I think that what he did last night was getting the most of the way in, and then what he did this morning was, I don't think he could have done what he did this morning.
Nobody sees what happens this morning. I mean, right. Unless they're watching Reporters Roundtable right now and they listen to Emily. Nobody knows that Bernie Sanders is doing this. It's behind the scenes stuff. Right.
And the thing is, he couldn't have done that last night.
Yeah.
He couldn't have done that from that stage. It would have been the wrong time. His supporters weren't ready for that.
Alex, Sarah Silverman came out with Al Franken. Sarah Silverman said, "Hey, you never Hillary people, or you never Bernie. Well, no, never Hillary people. You're Bernie or bust people. That's exactly it. The Bernie or bust people. You Bernie or bust people are ridiculous." A, coming from Sarah Silverman, does that make any difference? And B, there's something there. Should Bernie have said something about that?
I think that probably people did laugh at it a little bit, and I think the Hillary people who kind of are looking to bring over some of the Bernie supporters, I think that resonated with them and they felt good about it. I don't know if it's really changed the real Bernie or bust people. I actually think maybe Michelle Obama's speech did more to kind of unite the party in a way, just listening to the way she was very all-inclusive. I think when you listen to that, it was a powerful speech. It was electric. That seemed to maybe do more. But again, I think it's going to take more time, and maybe towards the end of the week, we'll start to feel like things are coming together a bit more. But I mean, that was a great moment by Sarah Silverman. Definitely quotable, and something you could replay over and over again. I thought it was great.
I mean, at Women's Wear Daily, there's a lot of celebrity stuff. I mean, there's a lot of who's wearing what and all of that. Politics in general has attracted more and more celebrity from whoever it is, from Scott Baio, who we've been laughing at for a week. I mean, not not necessarily Scott Baio. We've been laughing at him for years. He's just been funny and great, but we laughed at him particularly this week. To then moving to Susan Sarandon and Mark Ruffalo, who have been big parts of the Bernie Sanders campaign.
He's on Team Hillary now, as of this morning.
Yes. And he has now moved. Yeah. You stole my thunder. All right, I'm going home. And now Mark Ruffalo is. How much do, listen, we have a celebrity candidate, don't we? How much is celebrity a part of the way that we do everything? Now, you cover media, you cover that at Women's Wear Daily. How much of that drives opinion?
I think, I don't know, it's interesting. I was just on my way over here in the Uber, I was talking to this local woman who driving my Uber, and we were talking about celebrity, and she said, she wasn't saying she was a supporter of Trump or Hillary, but she said, I almost wish we could see what his first 100 days would be like Trump's. Because I would love to see what he does. I love The Apprentice, and in a weird way, I think there's something sick where we all kind of would love to see it, but we don't actually want that to happen. Some people, I don't know. But I do think celebrity is really embedded in our culture. At Women's Wear, I'm covering media, but there's so many celebrities who are working on fashion lines, who are getting involved in politics, music, and so it's kind of almost all crossed over. And also, social media gives them a voice and makes you feel like you are part of, their world. I think all of that and that fabric kind of is, there's a subcurrent in this, and voters do kind of want to see a very affable candidate, someone they've seen on TV.
Well, they get you to listen, right? I mean, I could sit here today and say, the sky is green, and everyone say, who are you? I don't care. But if someone you know and trust says it, then you believe it. Yeah. And I think that's, these are $1 million infomercials. That's what a convention is. And so you want people to watch your infomercial. So bringing the celebrities here gets you to tune in. Alicia Keys is performing tonight. I imagine a lot more young people are going to vote, watch and potentially vote for the Democratic ticket than if, Scott Baio showed up. He's not as big a draw, right? So that's the name of the game here.
Certainly not in 2016.
Right.
Scott Baio and he had his day. Tommy, have we cheapened what we're going for with this politics? I mean, if politics is public service and we have these parades and we've always had the conventions, they meant something once. Do you think that the end will ever happen to this stuff?
No, well, look, I'm of two minds where this is concerned. Let's separate Trump out of this.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy into the fact that the difference in Trump is not the celebrity. That's what makes everybody hear him. But the reason his appeal is all tied up in white resentment. And so, I hate to tar celebrity with Donald Trump. But I feel like...
But his rise, Tommy, he wouldn't have that... I mean, he always had a mouth and a mouthpiece, and he always had a soapbox. He wouldn't have had the chance to run, many people say, and I submit too, without The Apprentice, without the wide reach.
That's true, but, there have been a lot of celebrities. We never had a President Gopher. We never had a President Clint Eastwood because they didn't have that. He's a perfect storm of celebrity, but the appeal is it's a packaging of white resentment that is appealing to enough people to make him successful. But on the point of celebrity, first of all, I get a kick out of it. Okay, I'm a schmuck from Plainfield, New Jersey, and I can't turn on TV every time. Nice. Every time I turn on the TV, there's somebody I've met. I've met everybody.
Yeah.
So I love that. It's the democratization of media. More people. I love that. More people means more stupid people. I don't love that. But I think on balance, it's a good thing.
And do you think these conventions exploit that more than anything else?
Well, no, look, I think the conventions, they are by and large meaningless if you're doing them right.
Yeah.
But no, I think, yes, they exploit that, but also if you do a good job, I think the Democrats are doing a better job than Republicans. I think getting more people interested in politics for whatever reason is a good thing, because once you have your foot in the door, then you have a chance.
Right. It's not a secret, and we talk about comparing these conventions. There are more Democratic delegates, right? The hall seems just bustling constantly. There seems to be higher energy. Yeah, it's Bernie. Yeah, it's Hillary. Yeah, it's that interaction. But why don't the Republicans say, wait a second, it looks better on TV because there are so many more of them, not just because they look more like America than we do, but because they just simply have a couple of thousand more. How do they not see that, any one of you? I mean, how do they not? They're so good at marketing, the Republicans, and there's a chance, hey, let's throw a few more delegates out there and we're doing better.
I mean, it's an organizational thing, right? And that's been Trump's problem, at least this whole time, is he has a lot of people who like what he's saying, but there's no organization to his campaign. It's like Holly Hobby running his show. It's a joke. And so adding more people to that mix with less organization would have made it even worse. It would have made it that much worse.
Well, let's look at, I think Alex brought it up, but Michelle Obama's speech last night. A lot of people thought last night was the Bernie night, was going to be the Bernie night, maybe the Elizabeth Warren night. Maybe Elizabeth Warren would take apart everything that Donald Trump is piece by piece. I thought she kind of hit a double, and I think that Michelle Obama exceeded everybody's expectations. Not that there were high, there's a high bar for her, just because that we don't hear from her a lot. She supported her husband at the other two conventions. But that was a really well-woven speech, wasn't it?
People sitting next to me were in tears. Okay. I mean, I know that happens.
I'm going to confess something, and I'm not being partisan here or anything. When the stuff that everybody's replayed over and over and over again, I welled up, and I think she did too, so it was okay that I did. When she painted that picture of the house that she lives in and where her children play.
I was sitting next to two Bernie male supporters, people who I would never have thought would be the people you see crying, and they were into the speech. They welled up. I mean, I think what she said was...
So they cried twice last night.
Yeah, so I mean, I think she did what she set out to do, and no one was expecting that from her, which made it, I think, even more
I agree with
impactful.
You. Yeah, I think so. Did these matter? Did these speeches matter?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think so. I think it's like she was saying, I think Michelle Obama's speech had a big effect. Probably on Bernie people, but also on, the average American watching at home, maybe flipping past maybe the racist uncle who watches Fox News, got a load of Michelle and was like, you know what? She's not so bad.
Yeah.
She's kind of good, Right.
I mean, by the way, not a chance. But
yeah, right. Well,
the reluctant people who have spent their lives hating Hillary Clinton but don't like Donald Trump. I think that's the people that you're...
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, too. And I also... The speech surprised me because I already, love Michelle Obama. But also, like, as a guy who watches a lot of speeches and covers a lot of shit, I was like... I was writing it up for Mediaite, and I was like, look, I want to go to bed. Oh, Christ, so I wrote, like, the whole piece pretty much in the first 2 minutes of her thing. I was just like, give me the video so I can go to bed. And like into the speech, I was like transfixed. I was like actually watching the speech, and like you guys said, a little bit choked up. When she got choked up, I got choked up, and I think that's that matters. I think that matters.
It does matter. And breaking news: Tommy Christopher went to bed before Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Okay.
I'm just tired.
I understand. I totally get it. These things are tiring. I asked Tommy if the speeches matter. You can talk about Michelle too. But there is this whole sense, I always maintain, that who the vice president nominee is doesn't matter at all. Could hurt a little bit, but not even that much. Dan Quayle became vice president. Sarah Palin didn't, but I think McCain lost anyway. Would have lost anyway. Do the convention speeches themselves matter, or is it only when there is disaster?
I think they matter when they have a message that, like Michelle Obama message, or even like something that is all-inclusive and transformative. I don't think, if you compare last week's speeches to what she did last night, I mean, she didn't really name Trump's. She didn't even say his name, really. I mean, and last week it was just, all we heard was, Hillary this, Hillary that. I think her speech will go down as one of the best, maybe one of the best convention speeches, personally.
And here's why I think it
matters.
And here's another reason why I think it matters. I think it matters because in the middle of a night that there was a lot of tension or anticipated tension, it brought everyone together because nobody could boo her. Nobody could protest anything that Michelle Obama did. It gave the night a break, went to Elizabeth Warren, went to Bernie. Bernie was a celebration and an elevation, and then it ended.
She was, I think what was interesting was she was speaking to the exact people who Hillary needs. It's the white suburban women who she was speaking about your children and would your children want to grow up in a world with Donald Trump. And that's who is going to decide this election. He's always going to get the white male vote because he's against Hillary Clinton. But there's more women voters, and those women voters in the suburbs are going to select this at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. Tommy, you talk about white resentment on the Republican side, and we're in the winter of the presidency of the first African American, and a lot of the time when you were at that 2008 convention and 2012, so much was spent talking about the jubilation of electing the first African American, then re-electing him. And you saw a black first family, and it was laid out last night beautifully and eloquently by Michelle Obama. Do you think they've played up, and I'm asking you specifically because there are two women on this panel, but I'm asking you, do you think they're playing up the idea of the elevation of a woman enough at this convention?
Well, ladies, let me explain this to you real quick. No.
I'll tell you why I'm asking you. I'll tell you why I'm asking you. I'll tell you why I'm asking you.
Okay, all right,
We're going to get to them, but I'll tell you why I'm asking you.
That's an excellent point because no, they're not. And, I hate to be, I do feel like it's sort of unfair. I feel like, look, you don't want to compare grievances, obviously. Right. If one group is oppressed and another group is oppressed, it's different, it's apples and oranges. There's something about, insidious and pervasive and persistent about misogyny that's different from racism. It's embedded differently. It's encoded differently. And I really feel like this is not the advantage for Hillary that it was with some people with Barack Obama. And again, it's probably more of a disadvantage in a lot of ways.
Right.
But I really feel like one of the reasons she probably didn't pick Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar or Claire McCaskill to be her running mate is I really think that an all-woman ticket would have been a disadvantage with a lot of the people that she needs. And I think it's sad. And I feel like, I'm not a woman, but I love women, and I should be like,
right.
I feel like if I was a woman, and even if I'm not a woman, it's like that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, why is it a big deal that we elect a black president, but nobody gives a shit that we're about to elect a woman president? They've removed that symbolism from her.
Yeah.
Not just on the other side, on both sides,
And I asked you specifically because I know your writing and how you advocate for people on the outside, and you're writing a lot, and the sort of the experiences of different sort of splinter groups in politics. And so now I want to get to the people whose opinion matters more than mine and probably Tommy's.
Right.
But
now that I've explained it.
Now that you've there was a reason I went to you first purpose. I know you are. Keep doing it. But Emily, do you feel like that argument's being played up enough, or as Tommy I think provocatively said, do you feel it's almost more of a disadvantage being a woman than it was for Barack Obama being an African American?
It's interesting. I spoke this morning to a 93-year-old black woman who sat down, and I asked her about the historic nature of a woman president. And she looked me in the eye and she said, I don't know why women love tearing each other down. I go out and I ask women about the historic nature, and they say, I want a woman to be president, but not this one. And this woman who has lived through more than any of us sitting here, black, she went through segregation, she saw women, struggle for rights, saying it's women tearing each other down, and that's what I found here that's so interesting. That's
a fascinating take, and Women's Wear Daily. What's your take, Alice, personally, and also your readership, which is I would say widely disproportionately female, on that.
Well, it's interesting because last year I went to this panel at Hearst because I cover media, so they often have these panels, and they invited Gloria Steinem there, who was talking about Hillary, and she's a Hillary supporter. Someone said the same thing, like about, I want a woman president, but not this woman, and she said, she's like, why? And basically the answer was, this woman was the first lady, and she's a wife. And then she said, well, why does that matter? Because look at the George Bush Senior and Junior, and this nepotism type, this long lineage of these families. What's the difference really? She's the wife, she's a relative of a president, and that kind of change the conversation a bit. I think also Hillary, she is divisive. I wonder how much of it is because she's a woman. I wonder how much of it is because, maybe there's a generational thing, or she'll say she's not exactly the most, she's not like a political being in that she can deliver a big, great speech. She's like a bit of a wonk. And also, I mean, personally, I went to Wellesley, so we're kind of indoctrinated a bit to like Hillary, but I'm sorry.
I know. Why am I even here?
But in the end, I don't know. I think, I get a mix. For the fashion industry, it's very pro-Hillary. They love her. And in New York, you're totally in a bubble too. I mean, but I don't know why. I think there's a sense that, she's a historic candidate, but she's almost like the third sex in this weird way. Do people think about her as a woman in a strange way, right? I don't know. Do you get that sense?
I was waiting for you to finish talking. Yeah. I was like, this is what I'm going to say next, which is almost that exact thing. I think part of it, the problem for Hillary is that she doesn't, the first attribute that comes to my mind when you say Hillary Clinton is toughness. Yeah. That is the first, probably second and third too. She's a knife fighter. Which is one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this campaign so much. Because, look, we're playing nice at the convention here, but trust me, when things get down and dirty with Donald Trump, he's going to be fucking sorry, okay? And I think that, maybe that's my own sort of, you don't think of toughness as an attribute of women. Maybe that's the Hillary Clinton campaign thinks that too and is not playing it up because of that. Yeah. Because, look, I think one of her great assets, I don't know who would disagree with me, that she's tough as nails. And, it's one of the reasons why, Trump gets a convention bump. Maybe he gets a bump because he talks a lot of shit about ISIS, but I don't think anybody doubts Hillary Clinton's toughness. I really don't.
One thing, don't you think, though, that, when we start to see them square off on the stage together, I mean, all of this, how is he going to not say something stupid, right? And I think the women issue will come out, and, she won't even need to push it, and I think women will kind of convene around her.
That happened to her accidentally in her first Senate race in 2000 with Rick Lazio. It just happened where somebody did something that was sort of seen as indecorous, and they're like, whoa, wait a second, then we see Mrs. Clinton, and that's what people are looking for, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, you see Donald Trump, you can get close to him to nudge him and he gets set off. So if he's sitting next to her and she says something, Lord knows what he's going to do. I mean, and everyone's going to be waiting for that. And the other thing is he knows that's what people want. So part of me wonders if he wants to come and do something like that.
Well, and it may in fact be the case. Also, you talk about toughness. Doesn't it take someone tough to be president? So that the first woman president would be a tough woman. I mean, isn't that what we sort of would expect?
It's so interesting to me that we've made our presidential races into a cult of personality, right? Yeah. It's not who is qualified. It's who do you love? Who do you like? And it's I don't want to like my president. I want them to be a freaking competent person. Right. I want them to lead the country. I don't have to love them. No, I don't have to wake up every morning and praise them.
That changed in 2000 when Al Gore and George Bush were running against each other, and people were asked, who would you rather have a beer with? Is that when that started? Yeah, that's when. Yeah, exactly.
We go back in time and slap that person.
and that got so much mileage.
The person I have a beer with is an asshole. I don't want the person I have a beer with running the country.
Well, there's that take too. I mean, that's a possibility. All right, very quickly, we're gonna close here pretty soon. I want one last image. Tonight, the mothers of black children who have been killed by police officers, etc., and by George Zimmerman. You're going to have Trayvon Martin's mother here talking about their dead children. Last week, I was so critical of the soapbox that so many of the Republicans used the coffin for. It's a little different this week, but probably because I'm apologizing for it more. How do you think that's going to resonate? Last week, it got a lot of criticism, doom, gloom, darkness.
Well, so the women last week were placing blame. They weren't offering a solution. These women talking tonight are angry, but they're channeling it into something to enact change. And I think that's the key difference. It's not just stoking anger, it's offering a solution to fix the problem that they see. And I think that's the whole difference between the conventions, to be honest with you.
Tommy, same question to you.
Yeah, I know. I tend to sort of agree with what Emily said there. I think I've seen these women speak, and it's different. It has a different character. There's a grace, and a spiritual forgiveness to it. And I do think it's important. Look, I think when they speak, it's going to be fine. I think what's important is what policies we push around that. And so far I'm a little bit disappointed in that. I feel like the focus really needs to be on accountability from a federal level. Your life should not depend on what state you happen to live in.
Yeah.
But I think that I think the speeches will be good because like I said, I've seen them before, and it's not this bitter, angry, and I don't. And it's not exploitative.
Right. Alex, I'm not going to ask you the same question because it's all been said, but in closing, Bill Clinton speaks tonight.
Hi.
What does he have to do tonight?
Wow.
It's a big one, right?
The thing about Bill Clinton is he's kind of gotten himself in trouble throughout her campaigning. I think he has to try to, I just look at what Michelle did, but also like the kind of give a larger transformative speech, maybe talk about his Hillary as he knows her. I'd like to see something where he's not the focal point and he's really looking at the problems of the country. And just to piggyback on some of what they were saying about Black Lives Matter, it's refreshing to have a party recognize that after last week where some of those, it was Blue Lives Matter, but very little consideration to some of the victims.
No, that's a great point. It was unfair. I gave you a different question. You had all that time to come up with that answer. But no, that was very well said. I'm going to get the last word on this. Bill Clinton has to make the case.
Is there time for me to say one thing about Clinton? And
there is. Quickly.
I never liked that fucking guy.
Okay.
Hillary has always been his better half in a literal sense, and so But I'm not really particularly looking forward to his speech tonight.
I'll say one thing, though. Whether you liked him or not, the kid knows how to give a speech.
Good president can speak.
And he gave a speech that was a highlight of the 2012 convention in Charlotte. And I think that he might be the person that can best communicate in some way to the Bernie voters. And I think he's going to take a direct case to them. That's my prediction. Emily Kahn at the mic, Tommy Christopher, Mediaite, the Daily Banter, Alexander Steingrad, that's the byline, Alex to me now, at Women's Wear Daily. I'm Michael Schur. This has been Reporters Roundtable. Watch us here on the Young Turks tonight, TYT, all night, gavel to gavel, kind of, sort of, but certainly prime time. We'll see you later. Bye.